She leaned back on the couch, arms folded, and said the words like they were the most reasonable thing in the world. "My relationship with him isn't cheating," she told me calmly. "It's polyamory, and you have to accept it." The sentence hung in the air between us. Just 3 hours earlier, I'd seen the messages on her phone, late-night texts, heart emojis, photos that weren't meant for me. My chest had gone cold when I realized it wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern, weeks of it, but she didn't look guilty, not even a little. Instead, she looked enlightened. "People are evolving," she continued, sipping her tea like we were discussing the weather. "Love doesn't have to be limited to one person." I watched the steam curl up from my untouched coffee and felt something inside me go very still. "All right," I said slowly, nodding as if I were genuinely considering it. "I'm open to learning." Her shoulders relaxed immediately. She smiled like she'd just won an argument. What she didn't realize was that I had just started planning something she would never forget. My name is Daniel, and until that conversation, I had been with Maya for almost 4 years. We met when I was 26, both working at the same marketing firm downtown. She was magnetic, confident, witty, the kind of person who could fill a room without even trying. I was quieter, more methodical. Where she moved fast, I observed. At first, that difference felt like balance. Over time, though, it became something else. Maya liked control. Not in obvious ways. She never shouted or made scenes. Instead, she shaped things quietly. Decisions about where we lived, which friends we saw, even how we spent weekends somehow always leaned toward what she wanted. And I let it happen. Part of me believed compromise was what healthy relationships looked like. Another part simply didn't feel the need to fight every battle. To Maya, that patience looked like weakness. She would tease me in front of friends sometimes. "Daniel's too nice to argue," she'd laugh, squeezing my arm like I was some harmless pet. Everyone would chuckle. I usually smiled along. But patience isn't the same thing as blindness. I noticed things. The way her phone flipped face down when I entered the room, the sudden girls' nights that appeared every Thursday, the quiet confidence in her voice when she told me I just have to accept her version of love. What Maya never understood was that quiet people are usually the ones paying the closest attention. After that conversation, Maya behaved as if the matter had already been settled. She started mentioning Ethan casually, like he was just another friend. "Ethan thinks this new cafe downtown is amazing," she said one evening while scrolling through her phone. Her tone was light, almost careless, but her eyes flicked up briefly to measure my reaction. I only nodded. A few days later, she left her laptop open on the kitchen table. A message notification blinked across the screen. "Can't wait to see you tonight. No name, just a heart." Maya walked into the room, saw the screen, and didn't even rush to close it. Instead, she gave a small shrug. "That's part of the whole poly thing," she said calmly. "Transparency." The words sounded rehearsed. Soon, the small signals multiplied. She dressed up on nights she claimed were group hangouts. She hummed while texting someone late at night. Once, while passing behind me, she rested her hand on my shoulder and said softly, "You're handling this really well." Most guys would be insecure. There it was, the quiet condescension. Not anger, not cruelty, just the steady assumption that I would accept whatever boundaries she decided to redraw. And the more confident she became, the more invisible she seemed to think I was. The moment everything changed wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no slammed doors, just a dinner party. Maya had invited a few friends over, people who already knew about her new philosophy. The conversation drifted toward relationships, boundaries, modern love. I could see where it was going before she even opened her mouth. She rested her hand casually on the back of my chair. "Daniel's been surprisingly supportive," she said with a small smile. "I told him monogamy isn't really natural for everyone." A couple of our friends exchanged curious glances. Then she added, almost playfully, "He's learning." The table laughed softly, not cruelly, just enough. I looked around the room and realized something very simple. In her story, I was the quiet, patient boyfriend who would eventually adapt. The safe, predictable man who would nod along while she rewrote the rules of our relationship. To Maya, the outcome had already been decided, and that was the moment I stopped feeling hurt. Because once you understand how someone sees you, the next move becomes obvious. Later that night, while she slept beside me, I opened my laptop and searched for something she had mentioned weeks earlier. A local polyamory meetup. My cursor hovered over the registration button for a few seconds. Then I clicked it. I didn't rush anything after that. If Maya believed in open relationships, then I decided I would understand them properly. Not the version she quoted in conversations, but the one people actually practiced. The meetup took place every Wednesday evening in a small community space above a bookstore. The first night I attended, I mostly listened. People spoke about boundaries, communication, and agreements. They talked about rules, clear ones, consent, respect, transparency that worked both ways. It was surprisingly structured. Over the next few weeks, I kept showing up, quietly observing, occasionally asking questions. I learned the vocabulary Maya liked to throw around so casually, terms about emotional labor, relationship contracts, and shared expectations. But more importantly, I learned something else. Polyamory only works when everyone involved accepts the same rules, and Maya had never actually asked what my rules would be. That oversight made the rest of the plan very simple. During my 3rd week there, I met someone named Claire. She was thoughtful, sharp, and far more amused by my situation than shocked by it. When I explained everything, she laughed softly and said, "So your girlfriend wants polyamory, but only the version where she benefits." I nodded. Claire leaned back in her chair, smiling. "Well," she said, "that sounds like a very easy problem to fix." The opportunity came sooner than I expected. One Friday evening, Maya texted me that she'd be home late. "Dinner with Ethan," she wrote, adding a smiley face like it softened the meaning. I replied with a simple thumbs up. An hour later, Claire arrived at my apartment. We had talked about it earlier that week, not as some cruel prank, but as a demonstration. If Maya truly believed in the principles she kept preaching, then this moment shouldn't surprise her at all. Claire understood that perfectly. When Maya finally walked through the door close to midnight, she was still smiling at something on her phone. Her heels clicked across the hardwood floor until she noticed we were sitting together on the couch. She stopped. "Hey," she said slowly, glancing between us. I stood and gestured toward Claire with calm politeness. "Maya, this is Claire," I said. "We met at the poly meetup you told me about." Claire lifted a hand in a friendly wave. For a moment, Maya didn't say anything. Her expression shifted, first confusion, then disbelief. "I thought since we're both exploring polyamory," I continued evenly, "it made sense to introduce you to your new partner too." The room went very quiet, and for the first time since this all began, Maya had no script ready. For a few seconds, Maya simply stared at us. Then she laughed. Not a real laugh, more like the reflex people have when they think something must be a joke. "Okay," she said slowly, setting her purse down. "Very funny." Claire stayed calm beside me, still relaxed against the couch. I didn't smile. Maya's eyes moved between us again, searching for the punchline that never came. "You're serious?" she asked. "You said this was about openness," I replied quietly. "About not limiting love to one person." Her expression tightened. "That's not what I meant," she said quickly. "You don't just bring someone home." Claire tilted her head slightly, clearly curious. "But you've been seeing Ethan for weeks," she said gently. "Isn't that how this works?" The silence that followed felt heavier than any argument. For the first time, Maya wasn't speaking from a position of control. The same rules she had introduced were now sitting right in front of her. And suddenly, they didn't feel so empowering anymore. Over the next few days, the story spread through our shared friend group. Not dramatically, just quietly through conversations. And the reactions were telling. Most people didn't focus on Claire. They focused on the fact that Maya had expected freedom, without ever imagining it might go both ways. In the end, there wasn't a dramatic breakup. No screaming match, no slammed doors. Just a long, quiet conversation a few days later at our kitchen table. Maya looked tired in a way I hadn't seen before. The confidence she carried so easily was gone, replaced with something more uncertain. "I didn't think you'd actually do it," she admitted. That was the most honest thing she'd said in weeks. She hadn't expected resistance. She hadn't imagined that the rules she introduced could apply equally to both of us. I realized then that the real issue had never been polyamory. It had been assumption. Maya assumed I would adapt to whatever version of the relationship benefited her most. And for a long time, I probably would have. But people eventually reach a point where quiet patience turns into quiet clarity. We decided to end things that evening. Not angrily, just honestly. Our lives had moved in different directions, long before that conversation about acceptance. A few weeks later, the apartment felt strangely peaceful. Claire and I stayed friends, nothing more. The meetup group remained an occasional place for conversation, not revenge. Because the truth is, I didn't win by embarrassing Maya. I won the moment I stopped letting someone else decide what my boundaries were.